So let the KD and Kyrie era begin. Welcome to the Brooklyn Nets preview show. That's Isaiah Thomas. That's Sam Mitchell. I'm Chris Miles. But before we hear from these guys, let's go straight to Kevin Durant, who sat down with Kristen Ledlow about his injury and debut in Brooklyn.
I'm feeling better. I mean, I want to say I'm like 14 weeks in. It's been so long, a couple of months of just rehabbing every day, you know. It's been cool to see the progress, actually, you know, to see how stronger I'm getting over time, but still got a long ways to go. But just trying to stay locked in and also still support the guys along the way.
This is the first time that we've seen the new look Nets all together in your new jerseys.
Yeah.
If you were to somehow sum up the deciding factor in this decision, how would you do it?
I would just say the culture that was set, how much that DeAndre, myself, Kyrie can add to the equation. We knew that we could take it to another level with just our experience in the league and the stuff that we accomplished individually. And, you know, only can pour into the younger players and just the infrastructure as a whole. So it was a perfect place. Physically, you're feeling stronger, but mentally, how are you approaching this season knowing that your contribution will come from the sidelines? It's different. Obviously, you know, I'm so used to wanting to get up every day and prove to my teammates how good I am, and not being able to do that is frustrating for me, but it's something I have to get over and figure out different ways to attack the situation as a teammate, you know. So I'm looking forward to, you know, the challenge and figuring out new ways to help and contribute to the group. But ultimately, you know, my best way of doing it is rehabbing and getting back and, you know, being a strong player when I get back from this injury. So, but there's other ways I can help.
This, though, is very different than the last time you donned a new jersey, because now you're a two-time champion, two-time finals MVP. What have you learned about winning that you hope to implement here?
Just how much focus it takes on a day-to-day in order for you to sustain the level of greatness that you want to get to, which is, you know, ultimately winning the championship and doing it over again, you know, consecutively, and having a team that, with the Warriors, who knew how to, you know, stay focused at the right times. I think that was key for us, and that's something I learned along that way.
A very relaxed Kevin Durant, a very accomplished Kevin Durant. Nets general manager Sean Marks also said that KD will not play this regular season. That was prior to media day. Isaiah, how important was that in setting the tone, setting the expectations before Kevin Durant addressed the media?
I thought it was extremely important, you know, for him to set the expectations. Now, being someone who's had that Achilles injury before, I do know that, you know, KD will be ready to play probably by April. Now, can he come back and perform? Will he come back and play? I don't know, but injury-wise, you know, being able to recover from that injury, he will have had enough time to recover. And will he come back and be able to play? Probably not until next year, but physically, you know, by April, he will be ready to play.
Look, he should sit out this year. I know there's going to be people, especially as the season goes on and Brooklyn is in the playoff hunt with Kyrie and those guys, they're going to want to see him play. What happened the last time Kevin Durant came back a little early? I just tore my Achilles a year ago. Now, I elected to have the non-surgery and the rehab, and I'm still walking with a limp, and it's 14 months later. The Achilles injury is no joke. You got to be careful, because it's not just the Achilles healing. Everything is connected. It's your calf, it's your knee, it's everything. And so the thing that Kevin Durant has to realize is that not only does he have to strengthen that Achilles, everything on the side of that body, the knee, the calves, everything's got to be strengthened and retaught how to work and fire in sequence again. If not, you're going to start breaking down other areas. I think the most important thing, if we learn anything about the Toronto Raptors, the way they did with Kawhi Leonard, is that if you put the players' health first, then it's going to reward you on the back end. And I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to be smart. Sean Marks is going to be smart. He's going to set KD, let him heal properly, let him get his confidence back in that injury, and let him sit out the full year and bring it back slowly.
Another person we heard from about the Kevin Durant injury was Kyrie Irving. He said, hey, we're going to make sure he's fully recovered before he steps back onto the court. Not exactly sure that's Kyrie's place of expertise, or, you know, he's not part of the front office, but considering what he went through in Boston, considering his situation in Cleveland, how he wanted out of there. Is he at a crossroads in his career where he has to be just as good off the court with his teammates as he is on the court?
I think so. I think the fact that, first of all, I respect what Kyrie said, to take ownership of what happened in Boston and say, look, I wasn't at my best. I didn't bring my best to the table. I didn't lead this young group right. There's a lot of things I could have done better. Well, the key is, did he really learn from it? And I think he did. To go up, Isaiah, to get on a national stage and admit your shortcomings, that's tough to do, especially when you're an elite athlete, an all-star, one of the top players in the league. So I think Kyrie's learned from that. I think the most important thing he's learned that is not just respecting your teammates, it's creating an environment where everybody feel like they can be their best. Because you know this, Isaiah. I used to tell my players this all the time. The stars got it easy. People say, what do you mean? They make all the money. They get all the minutes. They never get yelled at. They never get thrown under the bus in the media. So they got everything. I always meet with my star players and say, look, it's very important for the success of this team that you give of yourself. You got to be more willing to give of yourself than the role players, because you're getting everything and those guys are getting bits and pieces.
Yeah, and the self-evaluation and the self-critique in reflection that, Kyrie was able to bring to the table in terms of reflecting on himself, and then coming to the realization that, I wasn't at my best and I could have done more and I could have been better. And that's hard for us as former players, coaches, current players. That's a hard evaluation of self when you can just say, hey, you know what? I wasn't at my best, and I wish people would have seen me when I was at my best. And I wish I would have been able to give the fans of Boston my best, but I wasn't able to give it to them for whatever reason, and I feel bad about that. So I'm happy that from a leadership standpoint, self-evaluation, self-critique, that he was able to come to that conclusion.
Well, looking at Brooklyn on the court, let's focus on that a bit. When you look at what D'Angelo Russell was able to do, have a breakout season with the Nets, now Kyrie essentially steps into that role. How is it different with Kyrie as opposed to D'Angelo?
Well, leadership is different because, when you're looking at Dinwiddie and you're looking at,
Joe Harris,
I mean, those guys have playoff experience. They've learned, they've had success without Kyrie, and it's a very similar situation that he inherited when he walked into the Boston Celtics. Now he's had a chance to learn from his mistakes, the things that he did wrong in Boston, and not repeat them in Brooklyn. So this is an interesting time for Kyrie because, again, the reflection and the self-evaluation was accurately critiqued. Now, can he learn from those past experiences and come to Brooklyn and be a better Kyrie as a leader, not necessarily a better basketball player, but a better person and a better leader?
Sam, when I look at Kenny Atkinson, he paid his dues, 8 years as an assistant coach. This is his first head coaching job in the NBA. 20 wins his first year, 28 his second, 42 last season. But this is the first year, and really the expectations are a lot higher of him. How is the job different from when he took it 3 years ago to where he was last season to what he comes into this season?
You just said it. What's that word?
Expectations.
Expectation. Oh, my God. Look, when there's no expectations, it's a lot easier. But the fact that they're coming off 40-plus win season, making the playoffs, creating some excitement, I think Kenny Atkinson is an excellent coach. I think he's the right coach for this Brooklyn team. They have an identity now. When you talk about the Brooklyn Nets, since Kenny Atkinson, Sean Marks, and all came in, taken over, they have an identity. They know who they are. They know how they play. And the reason that's important, Chris, when you bring new players, like all these new players, the Nets have revamped their roster. So when you bring these players in, the few holdover players are going to say, look, this is how we do things. This is what coach wants. This is what the GM wants. This is how we practice. This is how we watch film. This is how we prepare. And as a coach, you want to set the tone early. And the fact that you got to bring in guys, and I think this is a blessing in disguise. What hurt Boston with Kyrie is going to be a blessing for New Jersey because he now knows his mistakes. And again, if Kyrie Irving is the basketball player and even the man that we think he is, it's going to work out great for Brooklyn because he's been there, done that, made his mistakes, stood up and admitted to them, and now he's ready to lead this young, exciting Brooklyn team into the future.
Yeah,
I agree with Sam.
Yeah, Kyrie Irving, certainly a guy with tremendous talent. We just call him a closer, right? He's like the Mariano Rivera of basketball in a sense. You give him the ball at the end of the game, you know he's going to make that final shot. You know, Spencer Dinwiddie, he performed in that role a little bit last season, finished fourth in the sixth-man voting last season for the Brooklyn Nets. When we come back, we're going to take a look at just how deep this team is on the Brooklyn Nets preview show. Harris, that wasn't a fluke. He led the NBA in three-point percentage last season at 47% from long range. That's part of the reasons he represented the country in FIBA World Cup. Didn't turn out so well for them, but the Nets hoping for better results with Joe Harris out there shooting threes. Bringing Kyrie Irving, we know he's an outside shooter as well. Sam, when you see this lineup, all these guys across the board, how much of an advantage is that for their ability to shoot from outside?
Well, the starters speak for themselves, but when you start looking at the bench, you look at Taurean Prince. I've always been a fan of his. Guy that played in Atlanta. He's athletic. He's gotten better each and every year. And then you look at Jared Allen. I don't know if DeAndre Jordan's necessarily going to be the starting center because Allen had a great year, and I think as a coach, the thing you have to be careful of when you bring in new players, you got to give your old players a chance to fight for their position, especially when you've had success. And when I look at DeAndre Jordan, I like him, but he is not Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. Yeah. He doesn't get to walk in the door and immediately be crowned the starter. So when I look at this team, and if I think they're going to do what I think they're going to do, they're going to let these guys compete for positions and playing times and starting lineups. And I think when you look at that depth based on how they play and what they did last year and who they've added, obviously this year is going to be an upgrade. But next year, when the big man come back, they're going to be in that conversation for winning the championship.
Sam, you brought up a good idea when you look at their roster and their depth, DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen, in the sense that one thing Jared Allen does extremely well as compared to other bigs in the league is you can trust him in guard and pick and roll. That's not necessarily DeAndre Jordan's strong suit. When you see those two players, how do you have a roster with both of them coexisting? It seems like it's not the best idea.
Well, I like both of them from a defensive standpoint. And when either one of them is out on the floor, you still have a great defensive presence. And, you know, Jordan, you know, is one of the best screeners in the league. Okay. And he's also a rim protector. So what you're getting with DeAndre Jordan is a player that knows what he's capable of doing and only does what he's capable of doing. DeAndre Jordan is not getting ready to start shooting threes. But whenever he's in the paint, and Sam, you like to refer to this, you got a man in the paint. Defensively, you got somebody in the paint that the other NBA players respect. Guys aren't going to come in there challenging DeAndre Jordan. And if they make a play, you ain't going to see too many guys getting up, you know, dancing and all that. You don't see that around him. No. So when you're talking about, you know, one of the tough guys, one of the intimidators, one of the most respected guys in the NBA, it's DeAndre Jordan. Now, when you put him with Allen, from a defensive standpoint and their back line, they should be covered.
Exactly.
When I look at Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, both signed last season and this summer to 3-year deals, that adds depth to this team. And then when you put Kyrie Irving on this roster, I mean, how important was that for Brooklyn going forward, looking what they were able to accomplish last year to bring those two guys back and not lose them?
Well, as good as those guys played for them, what Sean Marks realized is that you got to upgrade your talent, man. If you're going to compete for a championship, look, mediocre teams can make the playoff if they just play hard for 82 games.
Yeah.
We know that. But if you're going to compete for a championship, get to these conference finals and go further, you got to have talent. So anytime you bring in Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Jordan, and those guys, and now you take some of those starters who help you become a playoff team, and they slide to the bench. But let me tell you what they did, though. They just didn't slide them to the bench. They did what first? They paid them, okay? So that's how you tell players in professional sports how much you value them. You take care of them financially first, and then it's easy to come back and say, look, we're adding Kyrie, we're adding this guy, we're adding that guy. We may need you to accept a different role coming off the bench, but you're just as important, but to strengthen our team. But we're going to pay you but can you accept this role? And for this Brooklyn team, and those guys know, they've been around in the NBA now, they know if they really going to win a championship, they had to upgrade their talent. But give Brooklyn credit. They took care of the players who've been there, who've accomplished something. They didn't say, well, what y'all accomplished didn't mean that because we didn't win a championship. No, those guys are part of the building blocks, and they took care of them.
Obviously, with Kevin Durant on the court, they are title contenders. Without him this season, what are they?
They'll be Eastern Conference Finals contenders. But when you don't have what Philly and Milwaukee has is they have that extra thing. They have that Embiid, and if a Simmons shows up, nobody can really match up with Embiid. So they have the extra. Milwaukee has, the Greek freak. They got Giannis. Nobody can really match up with that physical kind of talent. When you look at Brooklyn, they don't have that. They have the stamina. Now, when Kevin Durant walks on the floor, right? Nobody matches up with that. And LeBron James had the most interesting comment to me when Golden State beat Cleveland, a couple of years back, and they asked LeBron James, well, what was the difference between this Golden State team and last year? And he simply said, Kevin Durant. and from a player's perspective, Kevin Durant is the biggest mismatch in the NBA. He's unguardable.
Think about this. As a coach, you sitting there doing timeout to draw up a play. Your only thought when you're coaching a guy like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and those guys is just get him the ball.
Somewhere.
Hey, man, look. Just get him the ball and get out the way and let him make a play because he's either going to break his guy down and get to his favorite spot and pull up and shoot over you, go all the way to the hole, or make a play for a teammate. So that's the thing people don't understand. When you have great players like Durant and LeBron and Kyrie and all that, it makes the coaching easier at the end of games because now all you have to do is figure out how to get those guys the ball, and those guys are smart enough and been around the league enough. They've seen every defense and how you're going to play.
No, Sam.
It's hard.
As a coach, all you got to figure out is, how do I get it in bounds?
That's it. Give me somebody who can make an inbound pass.
If I can get it in bounds and I can get it
we
to
got
him,
a chance.
we all right.
The way that you guys just described that, though, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, offensively, Kyrie Irving is one of those guys, is he not?
He's one of those guys.
Not physically imposing.
But he don't have the other guy with him.
Yeah, no,
that's the difference.
So here's what I'm getting ready to say. He's one of those guys, but he's not one of them guys.
Yeah.
He's not a Durant. He's not a LeBron.
Yeah.
But Kyrie is one of them guys, but he ain't one of them guys.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Understand.
You know when Durant gets off the bus, off the plane, you know what to say? That's him.
Yes.
That's all. That's him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Kevin Durant won't play this season, but when he returns, the Brooklyn Nets got, that's him, one of those guys. Early last season, Karis LeVert, before injuring his ankle, averaged 18 points per game in the first 14 of the season. He spoke to Kristen Ledlow. That's up next. Uncle Drew brought his talents to a Brooklyn park, and check out this fan who took full advantage of it. Okay, he's got hops. Now, early last season, it was Karis LeVert that carried the scoring load for the Brooklyn Nets before Kyrie Irving was there and before he got injured. Here's Kristen Ledlow with Karis.
I would say we're a very competitive team, hard-working team, a gritty team.
As expected.
Right. And we're still trying to, maximize our potential and things like that. But we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to compete, win a lot of games.
This team will look a little bit different this year than it did last year. How did you find out that KD and Kyrie and DeAndre, who we just saw, were going to be your teammates?
I think I was sitting on my couch, honestly, and I found out the way everybody else did, like on Instagram. Yeah, I heard rumors and everything like that, but I didn't really listen to anything because things come and go. But I kind of found out on Instagram like everybody else.
Well, so what was your response?
I was excited. I was super excited. Playing with those two guys are both NBA champions. Yeah. Guys that are MVP caliber players, guys that I look up to and watch play a lot. So, I can't wait to take the floor with those guys.
Knowing what it took last season to return from an injury, to go through a rehab process, how mentally are you approaching this season healthy?
Honestly, last season was one of the toughest seasons that I've played as a basketball player, but also one of the most rewarding as well. Having a tough injury like that kind of in the middle of the season and then having to kind of rewire my brain and come back in that same season, it was super tough, but I feel like that's behind me now.
Well, maybe good days ahead of the Nets in the future. A lot of unknowns for them. How many wins will they have? We discuss next on the Brooklyn Nets Preview Show. Looking at the Brooklyn Nets from last season, a lot of room for improvement. One place they were elite defending the three. They only allowed 10 per game last season. And making threes, they made about 13 a game last season. Both good for 5th in the league. So let's figure out where they'll finish this season. More or less 43.5 wins. What you got, Zeke?
I got more. I think they'll live up to the expectations. I think the experience that they had last year in the playoffs, and then you add in Kyrie, I got more.
Yeah, I think so more. I even with Kyrie, without Kevin Durant, I think they'll win a few more games. I don't think it's going to be a lot. I don't think they'll win 50, 51 games, but I think 45, 46 wins, that'll be a nice little jump. Keep them in the playoffs, keep them advancing, and just hold down things until the big man comes.
Where do you think they'll improve most?
I think they'll improve most defensively. I look at their offensive game, and they're solid offensively. But the additions of Jordan and then when Chandler comes, I think they'll improve defensively.
That's been the Nets Preview Show. I'm Chris Miles, Isaiah Thomas, Sam Mitchell. We'll see you next time.